Happy Wednesday evening. Hope that you had a wonderful week so far. Hope that you had a wonderful day today. Just wanted to share some thoughts with you. Um, Today's thought that I want to talk to you about is living for real. Living for real. When you hear live for real, what do you think about? What brings to mind when you hear that phrase? Or sometimes you might hear live your best life. What comes to mind when you hear that? Usually when I hear live your best life, it usually has a carnal connotation with it and usually not spiritual. Whenever I overhear people talk about living their best life, it's usually got something to do with partying or having fun or living a very extravagant lifestyle. Very rarely does it have a spiritual meaning or connotation that goes with it. But when I talk about live for real or live your best life, I'm talking about as God intended it to be. Live the way God intended you to live originally. You know, people say, well, you only live once. Okay. Well, God intended for us to have abundant lives. God did not intend for it to be extremely hard, for us to be going through extremely difficult things. Although He knew that we would go through some things, He knew that we would conquer and we would go through it, that we were conquerors in Him. I mean, life was not supposed to be necessarily a bed of roses, but when Adam sinned, that's when all these things started coming into play, the fall of man. But God intended us to live a rich, abundant life in Him. And not just when we die and go to heaven. God meant for us to live life abundantly now. Spiritually and naturally. So when are we going to start living up to God's true, full potential for our lives? And no, it's not being a millionaire, although there's nothing wrong with being a millionaire. Thank God for millionaires. But there's more to it than just materialistic things. Matthew 6 says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added. If you seek God first, all of these things will be added. But not just things, spiritual things too. Spiritual attributes that God has for us in our lives. Not when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. Can we rejoice now? Why we gotta wait till we get to heaven to rejoice? Can we rejoice now? Can we live life to God's fullest now? I have not seen 1 Corinthians 2:9. Ear have not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man the things that God has for them that love Him. We're going to see some of it. Some of it we hadn't seen, but we can see some here on earth too. You know, some people say, well, you only live once. Well, some people only live once. I plan to live twice. Hopefully all believers plan to live twice. live now and live eternally with God, really and truly, we should always be living with God. There shouldn't be a point that we're not living with God. We should be living with God now. And we should be, when we go to heaven, we should be living with God then. Whether we go to heaven or if we're still inhabited on the new earth, heaven and earth will be made new. We should always be with God, no matter what. If we're believers, that is. But live your best life, but not just but your best life is the life that God originally intended for you. I hope that, encourages somebody. I hope that helps get things into perspective for some people, that small reflection that I wanted to share. I hope that you have a wonderful, blessed evening and rest of the week, and be encouraged and live for God. Live for real.